Hello, Joe Long, Education Curator at the South Carolina Confederate Relic Room and Military Museum. And the artifact I'm going to be speaking about today is this. It's about 6 feet long, manufactured after Governor Joe Brown of Georgia gave the order in February of 1862 that he needed 10,000 pikes for the state's troops. Facing a shortage of firearms, Governor Brown was certain that he could still arm his men effectively for the battlefields of the Civil War by giving them this medieval weapon. He had read about how the Spanish had effectively used pikes against the French in 1808, and he was certain that those men who couldn't be armed with firearms could still be effective soldiers if they were armed with this medieval-style weapon and used as a reserve. Now, they were manufactured in two models. This is the more inventive of the two. This design was actually come up with by a Methodist minister, the Reverend Dr. Graves, and he envisioned that this weapon, with its retractable blade, grown rusty with time, springing forward in the midst of battle, would be a great discouragement to the enemies. In fact, the way that he wanted it designed, it was going to have a 2-foot-long spring inside of it, which would actually drive the point forward with great force, essentially the world's largest switchblade. Now, the manufacturing capacities were not up to providing the springs that he wanted, but many of these retractable pikes actually were manufactured, and men were drilled with them and contemplated actually going into battle against modern firearms and artillery armed with an oversized knife. The wood of this pike is made in two sections. They were held together by an end cap of brass, which unfortunately is missing now. The spring would have been inside this compartment. This weapon probably never had that spring installed at all. As you move up, you'll see what the Georgia craftsman came up with. The handle here worked something like the charging handle on a modern rifle, had a locking position that would have locked the blade in, and when released, sprung forward. It can also be run all the way forward to a separate locking position which would have locked the blade in its extended position. The blade itself pointed. Some pikes were designed with additional sections for cutting bridles on enemy horses and such, but this is a very simple spike of a weapon, which Governor Brown said, providing his men with inspiration as well as an archaic weapon, that the pikemen should rush with terrible impetuosity into the lines of the enemy. Now, Governor Brown's sanguinary expectations were never fulfilled. The men of the Georgia regiments were not overly excited about taking a knife, even a very large knife, to a gunfight. The 34th Georgia Regiment, in fact, almost mutinied over the prospect of being sent to battle with nothing but pikes. But these were always meant just as a stopgap measure to keep the troops armed in some fashion until they could be provided with rifled muskets. Today they survive in museums in the hands of the occasional private collector as a testament to Joe Brown's inventiveness and to the determination to send these men to fight with whatever came to hand. If not with a rifled musket which could strike at 800 yards, with a 6-foot pole with a blade on the end of it, which, as Brown told the men, at least never misses fire and never wastes a single charge of powder.